Chills. Chills. Garbo, she gives me chills. The girl gives me chills. She drives me crazy. 1927, Flesh and the Devil, directed by Clarence Brown, starring Greta Garbo and John Gilbert, and of course Lars Hansen. But no one remembers him when we're talking about Flesh and the Devil, which is a film I I absolutely love. I mean, the theme of the film is sex and only sex. It's extremely lurid, and basically you got Garbo vamping around, and she is devilish. She's exquisitely satanic. She's positively possessed. Even in the film's closing, she seems to undergo some sort of wild exorcism as Ulrich's sister is praying for the safety of her brother and for John Gilbert. Garbo seems to go through this entire thing like she has no soul, and she actually is part devil, part demonic. It's amazing. And what's great is that after the exorcism, she seems to be all nice and happy and whatever, and then she sinks in ice and she fucking dies. So the problem with Greta Garbo was just the fact that she even existed at all. It was her existence, not the devils within her. That's lurid. That's trash art. That is trash. Beautiful, deliciously, deviously melodramatic trash art, and I absolutely love it. In fact, I think Garbo slays, and a big old fuck the censors, because this film had to do so many things to get around the censors, because it was pretty sultry, it was erotic, it was kind of hyper sexual, but I guess the film is really it derives its purposes from a quote that a preacher, a pastor character says, when the devil cannot reach us through the spirit, he creates a woman beautiful enough to reach us through the flesh. And my God, Greta Garbo, she can reach me anytime through planes of existence and non-existence. She could just take me away. I want to inhale her. I want her to devour me and suffocate me with every, fleshly part of her body. I mean, absolutely. That's that Swedish. I don't know, goddess. I do like in Flesh and the Devil as well. It kind of positions John Gilbert and Lars Hansen's characters as literally worshiping idols, literally worshiping like women, even when they were young on the Isle of Friendship. They kind of figure her sister, use her sister as some sort of like statuesque of a feminine origin, and they kind of pretend to like worship a woman, and then one comes along, an actual goddess, because Greta Garbo was goddess in the flesh or devil in the flesh, whatever. Say I don't care. I don't care. I would worship her too. Like I said, she gives me absolute chills. Felicitas, her character in the film, Felicitas. She casts the spell. We are all under it, and you can see it in John Gilbert's eyes. He's under it too, because you can see John Gilbert not only fall in love, but fall into a deep, deep obsession. He's possessed by her. I mean, if anybody gets possessed in this film by some sort of devilish thing, it's John Gilbert falling madly in love with Greta Garbo, which would turn out to be a completely tortured relationship with John Gilbert. He's us. He's us, because a normal human being can never understand Garbo. None of them. None of them, or even think that they could actually hold her, because she seems so intangible, so unreal, because she's out of control. There are parts of this movie where I just moan at how fucking beautiful she is and how unreal. But John Gilbert is us. He's our point of view, because not only is his character falling in love with her and being obsessed with her, and his life is being destroyed on account of her, that arguably happened in his own life. His own life was emotionally devastated by the quake of Garbo, and it never recovered, ever. They had one of the most bizarre and often talked about romances in Tinseltown. Gilbert is us. Gilbert is us. Gilbert was a screen idol in his own right, but then he met a true god, a true goddess of not only the screen, but of humankind in Garbo, and realized he was nothing. He was nothing. He was just another he was just another follower in the cult of Garbo, for sure. There's some great lighting in this film. Clarence Brown does an incredible job. There's this one scene where Gilbert and Garbo had their first like real conversation, and Felicitas, her face is just completely lit up um by this amazing like flash of a match, and it gets hyper stylized and lights up her face as if she's an angel, and she even does these amazing ways of giving away a cigarette, like she like wets it. Like I'm not gonna do the impression. It's like impossible to do a good impression of what she does, but she like puts it in her mouth and then puts it into John Gilbert's mouth, and it is it's like hyper erotic, but the lighting is really what I'm super interested in, because there's a great amount of lighting. There's a dynamic moving camera, um, but it's always, I love the lighting in this film. Very, very silhouetted, or it's very like harsh isn't the word. It's deliberately over stylized, hyper stylized a lot of the time. So it elevates a normal moment into a an unholy one. Really, Clarence Brown's lighting, amazing lighting, and I really do like the costumes. Garbo's entire wardrobe uh, just helps just helps to make her more untouchable, uh, more unkeepable. You can't keep that woman. You can't keep that woman still. She's completely amazing, and I mean I could go into I can go into the actual story behind this film, but there's really only one reason to watch this film. The only reason to watch the film is Garbo. I mean, the story itself isn't that great. Uh, I like garbage. I don't know. I like hyper melodramatic garbage that knows that it's hyper melodramatic garbage. And Flesh and the Devil, I would argue, is that kind of film, but no one watches it for that reason. Everyone watches it for one reason and one reason only, and that reason is Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo, this movie, this could convert any cynic, any unbeliever into the cult of absolute Garbo, into the cult of worship for this woman. She was just so unknowable, so enigmatic, so mysterious, but the attraction, you feel it right there inside of your chest, right there. You get chills on your skin, but your flesh, your blood feels like it's on fire. This film, I've always really liked this film. I do like movies where there is a true chemistry going on behind the scenes, and there really was a true one going on here. And it's not. This isn't to say that the actual real life romance between Gilbert and Garbo was unreciprocated or one way. Garbo, her friends have often said, because her sexuality has been theorized upon. I mean, she was most likely bisexual. Greta was. Uh, Gilbert is often referred to as the only man that Greta Garbo ever loved, and you can see the love there. I mean, that's what makes her performance so complex or multi-layered, is that you could see these complicated gestures where she does seem hurt by hurting him, or does seem at war with a part of herself, and you wouldn't normally get that kind of performance of character if there wasn't this real life devotion, this real life attraction being played out behind the scenes. And that's one of the benefits of capturing a real love, being born, being nurtured, being identified and understood for what it is. And that's what Flesh and the Devil ultimately is as well. I do love John Gilbert. He's also in The Big Parade and La Boheme. I think John Gilbert is awesome. I think he's a great, one of my favorite silent idols, actually. There's something incredibly and remarkably relatable about him. And, and, and that's what makes him ultimately so knowable, and what makes Greta Garbo so unknowable, because I can speak for a million years. I can read 1,000 books about her. I can see every one of her films over and over again 1,000 times, and I still wouldn't be any closer to knowing just who she was, just what made her so special. I wouldn't be any closer to that knowledge, because it's not even about knowledge with her. I can't even like feign or pretend to understand what it is, the center of Garbo, that has haunted, puzzled, and delighted so many people, myself included, for so many years. And immediately, it was an immediate kind of cultural public fascination with her, with this Swedish beautiful goddess. That's really what it was. It was immediate. So it's hard to tell. Is something just universally without an author, or is it universally the author? Is she God or is she part? Because to me, there's no other explanation. I don't care how hyperbolic, how extremely hyperbolic that statement sounded. I think Flesh and the Devil is a really it's a brilliant movie. I think it's a brilliant movie, a brilliant depiction of you know feminine wiles, what a woman can do, and how she can ruin her your life. I also think that it's a great example of silent age melodrama, of the melodrama of the silent era that made audiences swoon, and it makes me swoon as well in our modern day. I think it's a great example of the melodramatic emotional acrobatics that most of these silent movies would kind of make you endure. And I think that Flesh and the Devil has enough melodramatic acrobatics and more than enough mysterious eroticisms from one Greta Garbo to endure forever and ever. I think Flesh and the Devil is ultimately an extraordinary film. I love the film. I think it's brilliant from beginning to end. I've watched it several times. And I'm always thrilled by it. It's always something really fun. This love triangle of a story. It is just so, to me, just good. Is it masterful? Well, it's a masterpiece because it documents Garbo at the peak of Garbo itself. It documents a goddess in motion, and it also records the love between Gilbert and Garbo, which is one of the most, I think, impassioned affairs ever in the history of Hollywood. So it's a masterpiece in spite of itself. It's still a masterpiece because there a good amount of technical craftsmanship, of compositional genius, I would say. It is partly genius from a compositional standpoint. Clarence Brown really did well on this film by capturing it in the way that he did. The story itself is like, oh god, this is like trashy, but that's kind of the point. It's kind of the point. I do think it's a masterful film. I think it's as close to a masterpiece as that kind of lurid, almost exploitative melodrama could ever get. Remember, there's just one theme of this film. The theme of the film is sex. That's it. The film wants to turn you on, and then the film wants to punish you for being so turned on. And I always like it when a movie does that, or at least accomplishes that. Greta Garbo, I will always be drawn to her. She could have horns on her head and a pitchfork right here and a long, jagged, spiky tail. Like, obviously, the devil. I don't care. I would, oof. Take my soul, Greta. I do not care. I do not care. I'm yours. Love Greta Garbo, and I love this film. Flesh and the Devil, 1927. Definitely recommend, highly recommend that you watch it immediately.